Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday morning. Welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I'm the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. And look, we're coming down to the close, very close, of our study of the parable of Jesus in Matthew 25, 1-13, about the coming of the Son of Man for the wedding, in which he said, the kingdom of heaven is like. And what we've been able to do, what I've been sharing with you, is how the theme and the motif of the wedding is taken directly from God's Old Covenant promises made to Old Covenant Israel. Anytime you try to create a doctrine of the marriage of the Son of Man, separate and apart, distinct from, and divorced from, pun intended, the fulfillment of God's Old Covenant promises made to Old Covenant Israel, you are abusing the parable. You are abusing Jesus' teaching. I was raised believing that the coming of the Lord for the wedding had nothing whatsoever to do with the fulfillment of God's Old Covenant promises made to Old Covenant Israel. You know, over the last several weeks, I've been engaged in Facebook discussions and debates with individuals who, of course, believe that preterism is absolute heresy. And I have pointed out that Paul said, Colossians chapter 2, 16 and 17, that at the time he was writing, the Jewish feast days of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot, the last three, the fall festivals of Israel, were still, and he uses the present tense, shadows of good things that were about to come. They were still future. That is to say, their fulfillment was still future. And this individual argued the law of Moses was nailed to the cross, and then turned right around and said, the last three feast days of Israel's festal calendar are not yet fulfilled. Well, I'm sorry, folks. The feast days of Israel are parcel, fundamental to the law of Moses. Leviticus 23, Numbers 28. It is absolutely, fatally self-contradictory to say, well, the law of Moses was removed at the cross, and then turn around and say, we're still waiting for the fulfillment of Israel's festal calendar. Now, why do I bring that up? I bring that up because in Jewish thought, Rosh Hashanah was tied and believed to be associated with the time of Yahweh's marriage to Israel, and it typified the time, the last days, when God would remarry Israel. That's what Matthew 25, 1-13 is talking about. It's what Hosea foretold. And yesterday, I shared with you the following. Revelation 21, John said he saw the old heaven and earth pass away at the end of the millennium. And he saw a new Jerusalem coming down from God out of heaven as a bride adorned for her husband. The new Jerusalem, therefore, is the bride. And the wedding of the bride and the Lord would be at the destruction of Babylon. So this new Jerusalem concept has to do with the destruction of Babylon, whoever that is. And we saw yesterday from Isaiah chapter 62 that the promise of the marriage, or the promise of Yahweh remarrying Israel, the Lord said, you're no longer going to be called forsaken. I will call you Beulah, which is married. What a beautiful picture. Anyway, that would be at the time of the coming of the Lord with his reward. Jesus said, citing, echoing, alluding directly to, pardon me, Isaiah chapter 62, 10 and following, Jesus said, the Son of Man will come. Son of Man, who is this? Oh, this is the bridegroom. The Son of Man will come in the glory of the Father with his angels and shall reward every man according to his works. Most commentators recognize he is citing Isaiah chapter 62. Oh, and Isaiah chapter 40, but the point of it is, it's at the coming of the Lord, which Jesus said emphatically would be in that first century generation. So here is Isaiah predicting the coming of the Lord for the time of the wedding. Here is John in Revelation predicting the coming of the Lord for the wedding at the destruction of Babylon. The new Jerusalem would arrive at the time of the wedding. New Jerusalem wedding. Now, when would that what's the context? What's the framework for the arrival of that New Jerusalem? Well, let's look at Isaiah chapter 65. The Lord said, for behold, I create a new heavens and a new earth. The former heaven and the former earth, shall not be remembered or come to mind, but be glad and rejoice forever in what I create. For behold, I create Jerusalem a blessing. Oh, here we have a new Jerusalem. But what's the context? What's the framework? Well, let's start back here with verse 14 of Isaiah 65. For behold, my servant shall sing, pardon me, for joy of heart, you shall cry for sorrow of heart, and wail for grief of spirit. You shall leave your name. Who's he talking to? Folks, he's not talking about the church, and he's not talking to the church. You shall leave your name as a curse to my chosen. For the Lord God will slay you. Who's he talking to? O covenant Israel. And call his people, his servants, by another name. So here in the context of the promise of the New Jerusalem, that would only come when, the old Jerusalem, the old people, the old bride was destroyed. Remember, God had divorced the 10 northern tribes, but the time was going to come when he would divorce and destroy Judah as well. And that's what Revelation is all about. It's the destruction of the old bride. The old bride that had become a harlot, who said, I am no widow, because she had lost her relationship, her covenant relationship with the Lord. So we have Isaiah 62, New Jerusalem, at the coming of the Lord in judgment. Jesus said that would be in his generation. We have Isaiah 65, the promise of the New Jerusalem, at the time of the destruction of old Jerusalem. We have Revelation, the New Jerusalem, as the bride coming down from God out of heaven at the time of the destruction of the old Babylon, i.e., the city where the Lord was crucified. You know, folks, when I saw these things years ago, and remember, I was raised in an amillennial perspective that said Babylon was Rome, and the beast was Rome, and or the Roman Catholic Pope. And I believed that, and I taught that. And all of a sudden it didn't make sense anymore when I began studying the book for myself, instead of simply parroting what I had been told. I was told that it referred to the destruction of Rome. How was Rome called a harlot when the word harlot, especially is used in the Old Testament? In the Old Testament, the word that is translated as harlot is used 91 times. 86 of the 91 times it referred to a wife who had become a harlot by committing adultery and violating the marriage covenant. And here is the book of Revelation drawing on over and over and over again, drawing on those old covenant prophecies of the destruction of the old covenant harlot wife and the remarriage. And we find Jesus speaking of Judah and Jerusalem of his day 3 times. 3 times Jesus referred to Jerusalem and Judah of his day as the adulterous generation. Where is Rome ever referred to as an adulteress? Where? It's not there, folks. So when we see the harmony and we see the unity, we see the beauty and the harmony of the Old Testament with the New, if we don't have our minds made up that God was through with Israel at the cross. If we don't take the ridiculous position that God was through with Israel at the cross, but we're still waiting for the fulfillment of the last 3 feast days. And back to Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah foreshadowed the time of the wedding. So, whoever and wherever we identify as Babylon and her destruction resulting in the wedding of the Lamb, it is then and it is there that Rosh Hashanah is fulfilled. If you put it in our future, then the law of Moses has not been fulfilled. And if the law of Moses has not been fulfilled, it remains valid. Every jot, every tittle. And again, you cannot take the ludicrous, ridiculous position, oh, the law of Moses passed at the cross, but we're still waiting for the wedding of the Lamb. We're still waiting for the fulfillment of the last 3 feast days. You know, that's an awful lot of jots and tittles that remain unfulfilled. Okay, I'm out of time. Thank you so much. Listen, don't forget our April 2021 2-book special, U.S. orders only. And listen, I do apologize. I think I mentioned to you, I thought I had plenty of Sam Dawson's book on hand. We had a rush of orders. Boom, they were gone. So I'm now waiting on more inventory of Sam Dawson's book. But don't let that deter you. We're waiting on inventory. It's supposed to be in on either the 16th or the 18th, so we're not that far off. So the two book special for the month of April 2021, again, U.S. orders only. Sam Dawson's excellent book, Essays on Eschatology, covers a wide range of issues that are extremely helpful in his discussions. And my book, The Resurrection of Daniel chapter 12, verse 2, Fulfilled or Future. These are very distinctive books, very helpful books, very in-depth books that you will benefit greatly from. If you purchase them separately, you'd spend over $57, $58. For the month of April 2021, U.S. orders only, total delivered price, $37 and change. Go to my website, donkpreston.com, BibleProphecy.com, beautiful banner right up at the top. Click on it, march through it, and like I said, don't let the fact that we're currently out as of today of Sam's book deter you. We will fulfill and we will honor the orders. All right. Thanks so much for joining me for this morning's Morning Musings. I do appreciate it so very, very much. God bless. Have a safe weekend. I'll see you on Monday.